My name's Ann Farrell. I am part of the Farrelly's Pizza family and part of the Farrell family, and have worked in organizations and restaurants for 38 years. And so I started when I was 14, so you don't think I'm way older than I am. I am moderating a conversation about women in pizza. For the last 8 years or so, I've had the privilege of coming to Expo and presenting on how to build healthy work cultures. And after I'm done talking, lots of women come up and want to just thank me for being a woman who's here talking about pizza, and that they love the perspective and that it's just a slightly different perspective. And it wasn't about me being a woman. It was just that the way women manage and lead is maybe a little different, and they really resonated with that and had this desire to hear from more women. And so Bruce, who used to organize all of this, I said, hey, let's do a panel of women. And he said, right on. And so today, the idea of this is not about the politics of being a woman. It's just really about hearing from 3 really successful operators and how they do business and what you all can learn from them, totally beyond gender. They're just really great business people. And so we have a lot of wisdom sitting here, and I'm sure we have a lot of wisdom out there in the room. We want this to be really conversational. We met for a little bit beforehand and chatted it up, and so it's not going to be as strict. I've got like a really good outline. I've got some really good questions because I got a chance to know a little bit about their stories and what I think will be powerful for all of you. If you've got questions, raise your hand. If somebody of you 3 have ideas and want to tag on to what somebody else says, just, get right in there, and we'll try to keep it flowing. So that's what it's going to look like. Okay. So, we've got Jacque Farrell, who also is my sister and is the CEO of Farrelly's Wood-Fire Pizza. We've got Melissa Rickman, who is the CEO, or would you call CEO? Founder of Holy Stromboli. And then we've got Rachel Cope, who started Empire Slice House and now has 7 different concepts and growing. So I wanted to give each of you just a chance to introduce yourselves. So say where your locations are, how long you've been in the hospitality industry, a little about your concept, and then like the mission and purpose of your business. So why do you get up in the morning and do what you do? And maybe we'll start with Rachel and just go down the line.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Like she said, my name is Rachel Cope, owner of Empire Slice House. My hospitality group I founded is called 84 Hospitality Group after the year I was born. We own and operate 7 unique concepts. Is that funny too?
It just makes me feel old, but that's okay.
Oh man, old soul. So, own and operate 6.5, almost 7. I call it a half because there's a food truck in there. You know how that goes. So, restaurants in Oklahoma City, one of which is the pizzeria I'm here representing today. We were fortunate to be named the 2018 Independent Pizzeria of the Year by Pizza Today, which was a super unexpected and amazing accomplishment. Attribute all that success to the team that I have around me, and yeah, we'll just see. Sky's the limit. We're looking at duplication sometime soon for the pizzeria concept, maybe some of the other ideas that we have, and I just can't seem to stop opening new stuff with some of my friends, so we'll see where we go. But thanks for having me here.
That's a tough act to follow. What am I going to say now? Well, my name is Melissa Rickman. I'm the founder and CEO of Holy Stromboli. We currently have 1 unit, very successful and very happy with what we're doing. We are kind of on the fence about opening a 2nd or 3rd location, but we really want to take that decision seriously. We've had many awards. There's a list of restaurants several years running, best of every county around us, which is pretty fun. But we've been really successful, and I am just here really to share my passion. My passion is really, and our mission is to enrich the lives of everyone we meet through exceptional hospitality, food, and drink. And that's what we do, and I'm just here to share.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa.
Perfect. I'm with Farrelly's Wood-Fire Pizza, and I've been in the hospitality industry, how long for you? 38 years? So yeah. I'm significantly younger than Ann, so maybe 36 years. We opened our first pizzeria restaurant in 1995. It took us about 7 years until we opened up our 2nd concept. We currently have 8 pizza restaurant concepts and 1 McNamara's Pub and Eatery. We also have a pizza truck, which I think absolutely counts as a half, because I know that our folks put a ton of effort into making that a successful piece of business. Our mission is to use our business systems to create vibrant working families that help nourish the neighborhood. I always explain that mission statement in 3 components, because if you don't have a healthy business system, you're not going to be able to build your families. And if you don't have a business system that's creating profit, which profit is like oxygen to people, you have to have it to live, but it's not what you live for, you're not going to be able to nourish your neighborhood. So the mission statement really does work in 3 parts. And I credit a lot of the structure of our foundation to Ann. She helped us create a lot of our systems and the sustainability that enabled us to grow. It took a while to be able to duplicate with consistency. That and just an absolute phenomenal team of committed people around me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, you guys. So the first question, kind of getting into it, is I wanted you to share some of your big milestone successes, and then the strengths that you think you possess that allowed those milestones to be achieved. And we'll just kind of keep going in line. Rachel, Melissa, Jacque.
So when I first received the list of questions from Ann, the first milestone that really was important to me wasn't restaurant related. I played sports my entire life. I tell you that because it plays into my mentality and just my competitive spirit, and probably what drove me to restaurants in the first place. But I had played softball since I was, 5 years old, and had never really won the big game, and was always putting a lot of time and effort into practicing, and just cared so much, and had some really tough coaches along the way. In my senior year of college, we actually won the national championship, which was pretty cool. And so that was my first kind of big life milestone. And then really the second was getting that phone call last year telling us that we'd won the Independent Pizzeria of the Year award. Those are probably my 2 proudest milestones thus far.
Awesome. So I hear embedded in there that your competitive spirit is a big part of your strength, and perseverance.
Yes, and when I say that I had some tough coaches, my dad can tell you how many times he's watched me run sprints after losing 1 game out of like 60. Those were the kind of coaches that I was playing for, unfortunately. And they really taught me resiliency. It gave me pretty thick skin, which comes in handy being young in the restaurant business, being a female in the restaurant business. And so I really pull a lot from those experiences, and just having to get up and push yourself every single day because you're passionate about something. And I have that drive inside me, which again, I think kind of lent itself sort of naturally to the restaurant business once I got inside there. I just always wanted to win, to be the best. And I always push myself and our team in that direction. So
awesome. Just as you were talking the song, I get knocked down, but I get up again, it popped into my head.
Now it's going to be stuck in mine. Thanks. Yeah.
Melissa, how about for you?
Truly a milestone for me was owning Holy Stromboli, because it was a second career for me. And I was significantly older. I was already 35. But it had always been what I wanted to do. It was in my soul. I used to lay in bed and think about it at night, what it would be like to serve my customers and have that whole experience. So to really get out of the workplace and start from scratch was such a journey. But to open those doors and have it come to fruition was such an accomplishment. And then you take that a step further and you become very successful. And you think this little Stromboli shop that you had in your mind turned into something not only sustains itself, but gives back to your community in a way that you could never have imagined, or mentor young women or young people. I didn't see that coming, and for me, that became such a milestone for me. And then really to be here, because I think every one of you that are here are so brilliant. You are steps ahead of everyone else in our business, because you're here learning, and you're learning from great people like Mike Bausch over there, or the Farrellis, or all these people who really have things figured out. So to be here is a great first step, but to be on the other end of the equation for me is really a milestone, because I just want to give back what I've gotten from coming here every year.
Awesome. So I hear a lot about passion, the ability to dream and imagine what you could create for yourself. And yeah, so that's great. Thank you. Jacque?
Great. For me, I have thought about the question. Ann was disciplined enough to get us some structure ahead of the game, so we had time to think. And one of the first milestones for me was working for a company who I respected their values. But the milestone wasn't getting the job. The milestone was deciding to leave the job when it was obvious that they weren't promoting the women within the industry with similar skills. And that was in 1994, 95. And to me, that was a pretty big milestone to just decide, okay, I'm done. I didn't have another job at the time, and I was headed to California. Luckily, at that same time, the same milestone of opening up our first pizzeria happened. So that was 1995. Another big milestone was opening up the second pizzeria, and that was in 2002. In 2007, we won the Independent Pizzeria for Pizza Today, and that was huge. That was a lot of affirmation, and gave us a little bit of I don't know, oomph in the industry, so to say. It gave us some motivation to keep going and to say, okay, there might be something behind this. Another milestone that I had to work so flippin' hard for it was one of those best in your regions, best of the Northwest. And I started that quest in 1995, trying to win that damn award. At the time, it was going to car dealerships and getting the forms by hand and filling them, giving them to our guests to fill out. Since then, it's evolved to a whole online voting thing. And long story short, the last 3 years, we've taken it for our region. So that was a big deal for us. And the way we did it was our employees. All of our crew members got together, and they're the ones that drove that vote. So again, it's the people around me that have helped create the milestones.
So, and what I would say, since she's my sister and I've worked with her most of my life, what I can say one of her big talents is she's a credit maker, not a credit taker. So she has really built people all around her. I'm standing up here today because she didn't want to stand up here 8 years ago. So I got the gig, and there's the best way to learn is to teach. And Jacque makes sure that all of us get to learn and get to teach, which,
oh my God, I do have a Real Housewives tagline though. Does anybody watch Real Housewives of anything? Mine would be, pizza's what we sell, but people are who we make. Right? Wouldn't that be a good one? But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
All right. So those are some big milestones and successes and the skills and talents that it took you that have propelled you forward. But there's also big challenges and obstacles that you guys have all had to face. You sent me some answers, and from those answers, I developed some questions that I want to ask each one of you, addressing different things that I think I've seen throughout the years that are relevant for everybody in the industry. And I'm going to ask Melissa first. And so I'll set the question up for you, and then you can go for it. All right?
All right.
Okay, so talk about your transition from being the owner who built your business from the ground up and grew it with heart and grit. In the process, you became technically skilled expert at all aspects of your business. So pizza, stromboli making, service and hospitality, business systems. But because your success depended on it, you did that because your success depended on it, right?
Yeah.
So as an owner transitioning into a leader that delegates, trains, develops other managers and leaders because you want to pursue the creative aspects of expanding your concept, what are those challenges and struggles and some of the successes of that journey?
Wow. That's a big question, right?
Was that one question?
I know.
Set it up. The overarching thing is that what I see most often is people who are experts at the technical skills of managing their business really struggle when it comes to developing leaders and growing people so that they can be free to do other things and grow and expand. And so basically, yeah.
So this is not a short answer. So here's the truth of it, and I'm just going to be honest. All of us have multiple personalities. I have two. There's Melissa with her hair on fire, who's the crazy freak that does everything. And I am the best expo we have. I'm the best server we have. I'm the best damn cook we got, right? I'm great at everything, and I could show them all up. And they're more than happy to let me do that, right? They're like, you go. Yeah, go get the phone and go cook and whatever it is, right? And then there's Melissa, the trainer, the developer, the CEO, the one that's supposed to plot our path. For me, it was vitally important to have that realization that Melissa with her hair on fire had to die. Like, she had to go away because she was standing in the way of Melissa, the CEO. And that's a hard thing to do because, I talk about forks on the floor, and we all have them. It literally could be a fork on the floor, but it's also, gosh, we're not plating the food right. Or we're not doing things exactly the way Melissa would do them. And in your mind, that's what makes you successful, right? And if we had a bunch of Melissa robots running around, it would be perfect, right? But we don't have robots, we have people. And for me to really be able to take a step back and look at my expectations and say, are you being realistic? That's the hardest thing to do because that's your baby, that's your whole life. All the people that work for you, they could quit tomorrow and go work at another pizzeria, or they could go, I don't know, they could go 10 bars, they could do whatever they wanted, but at the end of the day, you can't get out of it. And so you have to really look at yourself in a different way and redefine your role with the company. It's hard. It's not an overnight process. It's not something that has come very easily for me either because I'm 46, you're young. Right. And I think that when we're young, we're a little more agile. Our thoughts are a little more, and so I'm kind of stuck in my ways. So learning how to lead my people in a different way, learning to let things go, and learning to understand that my role is so vastly different. And I think you and I talked a couple years ago, my daughter and I, and you met for coffee, which was really great. And Anna's so insightful. And it was that that notion that as long as you're going to overfunction, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you overfunction, your team's going to underfunction. And so for me, that has been the biggest ongoing challenge. But I'll tell you, it's really rewarding because the forks on the floor will kill you. Like if you continue to worry about, well, God, they don't have any medium gloves in the weight station. You're going to burn yourself out. And I can tell you 9 years later, I can't do that anymore. I can't be that person anymore. And so just learning how to look at things differently and to let your team fail. As somebody said that to me the other day, he said, do you let your team fail? I'm like, God, no, I don't. No, nobody fails in my organization. We all succeed. We're all winners and we all do the right thing 100% of the time. No, we don't. No. And if you don't let them fail, they're not going to know that it sucks to fail, right? And so I don't think there's any one of us in this room that want to fail, but if we're always rescuing people, then they'll never know. Yep. So that's been my challenge and my journey, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and then you're working with a coach and getting help, and
I hired a coach last year. I hired a manager. She lasted for 6 months, and either I was going to kill her or she had to leave. So she left, and I cried. I stood on my patio. My whole team was inside, and I had left a message for this coach. I had done a little bit of research, and he called me back, and I was like, I just don't even know what to do. I knew that I had to change. For me, I knew that whatever systemically was wrong with my organization was my fault. I had to take ownership of that and realize that anything that's not going right with this organization is my fault. So, let me take a look at myself. He'll probably tell me I'm fine. He'll be like, oh, no, you're doing the right thing. Keep it, you're good, right? And so I didn't expect for him to really be like, okay, we got to talk. Like, you've got problems. Let's, But he did. He was honest with me. I had to take a really hard, honest look at myself and realize that my expectations weren't realistic, but that what I was doing is okay. It's natural. That progression is natural. We're all going to go through it. We all go through this feeling of being responsible for every little thing and being the one to make sure it happens, and then learning those finer skills.
Yeah, and how awesome it was that you had the insight to ask for help and the self-awareness to know about Melissa with her hair on fire. That's awesome. Yeah. Jackie or Rachel, do you guys have thoughts about that transition from being the operational expert and doer to the leader and developer?
It's so interesting. I'm just sitting here nodding, yes, girl, because I'm going through a lot of that myself. I've been going through that for a while. We opened Empire in 2013, and there was one store, and then I took on a consulting job for someone. So that was kind of my way of testing out if I could manage 2 things at one time, because I was the best expo. I tried it recently though, and it was pretty embarrassing. So apparently that time is over, or I need to practice when no one is around. I don't know when that would be. But I just kept stacking on new projects, and I'm just laughing, picturing myself. We just opened a bar like last year, and it would be going down like in flames in the, at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's packed, and everybody's trying to get drinks, and I'm just, what am I doing? I'm back there like I'm making the cocktails. I need to not be back there. And I've really had to look at myself and go, this is not my job anymore, because I'm hurting my team by doing that. Yes. I'm not even trained to do it. I just think I can, or that I should. And so that's been quite a growing process for me as well. Mm-hmm. I can't continue to grow. We have 180 employees right now, last time we counted. We have a new concept that's opening in May that'll probably add another 35 to 40. It's a lot of people, and you cannot do it alone. I watched a restaurant group I worked for before try to do it alone and crash and burn. And so I was kind of thankful to see that. Sorry for them, but good information for me. And I also hired a consulting firm to assess our infrastructure recently and make that 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. And they interviewed 25 to 30 people from within our organization, including investors, staff from all different parts of the group, and said, speak freely, like, what are the weaknesses? And they all said, we're afraid Rachel's going to get burnt out. Mm-hmm. We're afraid, we want to help her, she won't let us. And, that when we're talking about those things, it's hard to hear, but it's because they care about you. Also stunting their growth as well by not empowering them to make mistakes. And basically I just tell them, don't burn it down. That's it. Just don't burn it down. And don't let the oven guy walk out. If you can just do those 2 things, I think we'll make it. We can correct the other issues later, but that's been really helpful for me. And so hearing you say it too, I'm not alone, right?
Well, and what you said about being behind the bar and realizing I am the problem right now. And I've always been the one to go out there and help Expo. Love to help Expo, right? I can tell if the knife's in the wrong spot on the plate from there. And then the day comes when you walk out on the floor and it's like the freaking Red Sea parts, and they're like, oh, she's out here. And it's not because you might be a little bit nitpicky, but it's mainly because they don't need you. You're in the freaking way. There's not room for 8 people in the expo window. You're number 9 and you're really screwing it up. Mm-hmm. And they got a handle on it. And what do you need to be out there for? And it was that day. It hadn't been that long ago. I walked out on the floor and I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to go back in the office. Oh my God, And then at some point, the office isn't good enough. Then they don't want you in the office. You have to give them space. And then soon I'm like, where do I go? I'm an orphan.
Yeah, and then you're free to dream again. Right? Dream and create.
What's cool is when you start looking and there are no forks on the floor consistently. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most rewarding part, is when you see that finally happen and you're like, okay. It's all good. We're going to make it.
Yeah. So. Jacque, any additional thoughts on that one?
I've always been a huge believer that the indication of how well a restaurant runs is how well it runs when you're not there. Now, having said that, if I was a single operator unit right now, and I did it for 7 years, nobody can run the restaurant as good as me. I mean, flat out, if you are the owner, that is your business. That's your name on the lease. It's your bread and butter. You're the person who owns the result. It will behoove you to know your business inside and out. And, I have a real mixed feelings about whether you are just completely and totally engaged. It just depends on what your business situation is. Like I said, if it is your singular myopic focus to run one business and run it very, very well, then I think that's what you should do. We're in a situation now where the more restaurants that we open and the more that we're doing, the less hands-on. I mean, it would be an absolute joke for me to try and go run an expo screen or a bar service, or I think I'd do pretty good on the oven. I think I'd do pretty good on the cook line, but I did not do good with technology during this last snowstorm. That was pretty humbling. I did give that a run for its money, but it didn't work out well. So it's like I see both sides of the fence. And also I see the investment of it. I know that times are lean, and when you have one operation, it makes a lot of sense sometimes for you to be those eyes and ears on site, seeing when the employees need to phase in, phase out, seeing, making sure the portioning is happening, not happening. And then now being hands off, I understand the importance of systems to make sure that is and isn't happening. So it's kind of, I think we've got a question.
Oh, yeah.
I meant, so a server, for example, or a cook, an artisan starts their shift at 10 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the lunch rush has slowed and their shift is supposed to be over at 2. Are they actually clocking off at 2? Or are they kind of just like lackadaisical being around, and then all of a sudden now you're the one paying that additional hour minimum wage?
Awesome. Okay. So we'll shift gears and we'll talk to Rachel. One of the things that I learned from Rachel was that she did have to overcome a lot of obstacles as a woman, and especially a young woman, breaking through some barriers in her hometown. So I was wondering if you could expand a little bit, because I think attendees would love to learn about your mindset and drive and what behaviors helped you to achieve all of this success that you've had.
I never think of myself as being like a girl versus a guy. I've never thought that way. When I was younger, I was always playing basketball with the boys. I always wanted to play. I didn't ever see kind of the line between those things. Just want to put that out there before I dive into this real quick. I started working for an independent restaurant group in Oklahoma City after college, and I was just working as a server. I hadn't really gotten bit by like the restaurant bug yet as far as really being passionate about it. I was just kind of doing it as flexible as easy. And I slowly started kind of progressing through the ranks there. They had about 6 to 7 restaurants in Oklahoma City, different kinds. First one I started working at was a wood-fired pizza place, and I had a really strong female GM there that was fun to watch. And she was the first one who really kind of showed me that there was no rule book. I had only worked for chain restaurants before, like On the Border and some places like that, that there was always a guideline for how you handle this situation with a guest. But she showed me that there were other ways to do that, which was really cool. So I progressed through the ranks there. Manager, then everyone above me kind of fell off, and I became the GM of a restaurant that they had. And then they just kind of kept moving me around because I was good at being a coach and being a problem solver and a leader, and it was all good. And they were really took me under their wing. This restaurant group just happened to be owned by 3 men who were quite a bit older than me. And during that time period when they wanted to, they shared a lot of information with me. And then at some point they decided that I knew too much, that I'd seen too much. And so they let me go for no reason. It was really hard for me because I didn't do anything wrong. If anything, I'd done a lot of stuff right. They were the ones who had been doing things wrong. It took me a while to realize that for myself. So I worked for some other places in town, and I just still wasn't really happy. I always found kind of an issue with everywhere I was working. I wanted to I wanted it to be better. And then those guys came back around and said, hey, we made a mistake. We need your help. This bar we have is kind of failing, and you're the only person I know that can come in and fix it. And I said, apologize to my face. And he said, where do you want to meet? And so I met him, and he said he was sorry and told me he needed to pay me more money and that I would do it. And so I did it for a while, and I kind of started seeing the same old issues pop up. That's when I decided I had heard about this contest for an old laundromat in kind of this artsy district in OKC. And I called one of my friends and said, let's just put our hat in the ring and try to create our own concept. And when I went to do that, there's a longer story. We lost, and then they came back, and then we had a new idea, and it was pizza, and so Empire was born. But man, when I went to open my own place, they did not like that. They did not like that at all. I have been through lawsuits. I have been through bullying. I've been through all kinds of stuff, whether that's because I was a young female and they thought they could push me around. There was one guy in the group who actually would walk into my restaurant, stare at every person who was working there in the face, walk all the way to the back, walk all the way out and look at me and walk out. That was his kind of bullying move or whatever. He's called me 2 years ago and still was accusing me and trying to poach his staff. And I finally just stood up for myself and said, don't ever expletive, call me again. And, but it was really hard to get past that. The harder part was they were going around telling people that my idea was their idea. And that a lot of people were thinking, well, she's just regurgitating ideas that she stole, or that she, and she's taking all their employees and doing all this stuff. And that was kind of a hard pill to swallow, because I created that idea. That was my idea. I had help with it. Those were my teammates, but they did not include those people from that group. And so that was a really hard thing for me for a while. The other issues that I deal with being young female business owner, period, whether it was restaurants or in a different industry, was dealing with a lot of people who were quite a bit older than me about really important stuff. Leases are super important. And you better bet that they will take advantage of you if you do not know what you're talking about. I learned that pretty quickly early on, got myself in a kind of a sticky situation with one, and was able to remedy that last year when we rebuilt Empire Slice House from the ground up a few doors down, which was a crazy idea, but it worked. And so, through that, there's a couple things I want to share that really helped me. And one was just to educate yourself in every aspect of running a restaurant. You can always trust yourself, right? So leases, financials, operating agreements, funding. I sit in construction meetings now, even when we're talking about building new places. And I think this architect group that we're working for is pretty mind blown that I can also calculate the HVAC load based on our total BTU, ceiling height, number of guests, and whatever. Then they started talking to me a little bit differently. Started taking my dad along to the meetings too, though, so he kind of scares them a little bit. But join groups for other entrepreneurs. Join groups in your city with people who are like you. There are a lot of people around you who are struggling with the same things that you are. And that was really hard for me to share, because I didn't want to show my weaknesses. I didn't want to say, I don't know the answer to that. But the only way to find the answer is you got to talk to people. And that's been really helpful for me as well. It doesn't even matter what industry. I think you'll find that there are a lot of commonalities between small businesses in general. Another one would be to hire people who complement your strengths and make up for some of your weaknesses. That's been another thing. But to do that, you have to identify, like you said, look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I not great at? Or do I not have time to get great at? And then you look for those people and you hire them and you let them run with it. And you kind of learn from them a little bit too. And that's really nice to have a team that you trust. And pretty much, I think the last thing would just be, as a young person too, you got to lead by example. You have to be prepared. You have to be taking notes. Be on time. Be early. Like a coach used to tell me, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, we're leaving you. And I did get left one time. Luckily, they waited for me. But I had to carry all the gear for like a whole week, which really sucked. And then just pay attention in those meetings that you are meeting with landlords and you are meeting with bankers and put your phone away. Nothing is that important. Be where you are in the moment and be there and soak up all the information that you can and just really be present. And in those things, and you can control all of those things. I've found that to be super helpful with being a young person in a small business. And so.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can see why you're successful.
Thanks.
Jacque, how about any thoughts on that conversation? Jacque started running restaurants when she was 23. She's older than that now.
24.
Yeah. I think that Rachel is absolutely eloquently telling the story. For me, it started to resonate maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. My father is 75. We went into the partnership and opened up our first store together, 25% me, 75% him. As we've grown the concept, we're roughly 40-60 right now. And he is incrementally unable to participate in the business. He helps take care of my mom quite a bit. And so in doing that, it's kind of one of those things you see in slow motion and you see it happening. And he was always the finance guy and the negotiating guy. And I realized, wow, I'm going to have to figure all this out. And I don't really know how to run a business that has this many restaurants. And I don't know if he knew how to run it all the way either. And I thought the only way I'm going to learn how to do this is to start surrounding myself with people who are doing it. And so the first step for me in that was to associate. My goal was to get a seat on the executive board of the Washington Hospitality Association. And the first step to that was probably 6 or 7 years ago, joining a wing of that association, the Education Foundation. I worked into a chair position on that, which got me a seat on the executive committee, and I was the only female on that committee. And it was very interesting and very uncomfortable, but I started to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And just, I have no shame in my game. I will ask any question that I don't know the answer to. Like the other ladies have said, I constantly am taking notes. If they say a word, that I'm looking up words, the definition of words that people are saying around me, because I'm in company with people who are running $500 million businesses, and I'm trying to just pretend like I'm a player in the game, right? And so I'm constantly taking notes. I'm constantly looking things up. I also joined a CEO advisory board, and again, that was surrounding myself with an all-male group, but they were folks that businesses were completely different from the restaurant business, but a business is a business, and you run it the way that you need to run it as a business. So the more you can surround yourself with people who have information and knowledge that you don't have, the better off you're going to be. And there isn't anybody out there who's going to teach you how to run multiple restaurants in completion. You're going to have to pick and pull little parts of information all along your journey and then put it all together and make it work for your four walls, for your concept, for your multiple locations, however you're going to do it, because nobody's going to hand you a guidebook that says this is how you do the whole shebang. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. And the more you read and the more you associate with, and you know what? I think that it's an ethical obligation when you're leading people, that you're leading yourself, and that you're growing your own intellectual bandwidth and you're growing your emotional bandwidth. And I think the most important thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is that people absolutely do their worst work when they're operating in fear. And I may or may not have had a habit of coming in a little hot sometimes. And
I always sing Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus when I walk in the room,
Yes.
just as a joke, but
yeah. Right? And when that happens, it instantly puts people on the defense, and they're trying to figure out an answer to why you're so fired up. And it's like, okay, let's figure out how to communicate with folks differently so that they're not operating in fear, and we can figure out long-term solutions. So it's just been a really slow moving process of learning, constantly learning.
And you talk about operating from fear. I think it's a two-way street. I can't tell you how long I operated in fear. What if so-and-so quits? Oh my gosh. Well, I better not make them mad. Please don't quit. Oh God, I know you really pissed me off, but I don't want to piss you off. And it's crazy, right? The things that we do to preserve our business and to protect our business. And I think honestly, that's another reason for me that owners don't make good operators, because we have so much at stake that sometimes we don't make those hard decisions, because if I have to go back on the pizza line, oh my God, what's going to happen to X and what's going to happen to this? And I do notice that my managers are more willing to make those tough decisions, because they're not afraid. If it doesn't work out, then, they're going to just go move on. So that operating from fear is not good for your employees, and it's not good for you either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Very true.
Awesome. Okay, so I was going to ask Jacque a question about how she really turned Farrelly's into a learning organization. And I think you've touched upon a lot of those points now, but I'll just ask it and see if there's anything more that comes up for you. So if you could talk about your dedication and commitment to learning, growth, and development, and how that has trickled down to creating a culture of growth, learning, and appreciation, and awesome achievements. Why is it important to get uncomfortable being uncomfortable?
The importance is just so that you can continue to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. And it doesn't matter if you're growing in numbers or you're growing in depth. You just have to continually evolve. And it is of the utmost importance within our organization that we invest in training and development that's in excess of the basic nuts and bolts of learning how to create the perfect pizza or create the perfect table service or the perfect takeout order. I feel like at this point in the game, I'm focused a little bit more in training and developing the intellectual skills of leading and developing people within my people, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Cool. Anybody else want to talk about learning? What my next question is, what do you consider, or who have been your greatest teachers, mentors, and maybe your favorite book that you're reading, or the favorite book of all time that really instilled a lot of knowledge? Let's just start again. Rachel, Melissa, Jacque.
When I kind of wrote you an answer to that, I didn't come from a family of restaurant people. I didn't really know who to speak to about that whenever I started, because the people that I was talking to were now the people that hated me. So that was a little difficult. So what I did was turn to books. I read a lot of books, listened to a lot of books. I still do that now. My attention span is terrible, so I've kind of moved on to some articles, or seem to be a little more effective for me. I like that they're short and to the point. Literally, I pick up the same 4 magazines almost every time I'm in the airport. It's like Inc., Entrepreneur, those are the types of things that I'm always reading. There's a lot of Forbes, there's a lot of tech information stuff in there like that. But some of my favorite books, Setting the Table, I mentioned that earlier in a panel today by Danny Meyer. Everything I do that I'm driven by, that I'm passionate about, was driven by just hospitality, just really the guest interaction and giving them that experience. That's a great book to speak about that. If you don't know who he has a Union Square Hospitality Group in New York City, a lot of amazing restaurants, but he is now most famous for being the founder of Shake Shack. So that's who Danny Meyer is. And there's a lot of parts in that book too that speak to me at different points in my career about, the beginning was about just hospitality and how he got started and some of the stuff he was going through that was difficult. And then there's parts later about closing your first restaurant and making hard decisions that also resonate with me with some of the projects that we've had. And that's a really great book. I also liked Restaurant Man by Joe Bastianich was a good read or listen. I think I did an audio on that one, but he had a lot of good points in there as well. And so that, and then Leaders Eat Last is one I've been reading recently, as well as Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook. So I'm just, always doing that, awesome. Learning, educating thing. And I try to share some of those with our staff and group as well, parts that I think would resonate with them. And so we bought a copy of Setting the Table for every new manager for quite some time. And I got mad about the whole no tipping thing that he did, and I stopped buying the book, and then I think I'll start buying it for everybody again, so we'll see.
Right on. Melissa, how about for you, who are mentors, and what are you reading?
Of course my mom, right? My mom taught me to be independent. Mm-hmm. She taught me to take care of myself, and she taught me there wasn't anything that I couldn't do if I put my mind to it. And then my business partner, Eric, there's this mentality that sometimes we're brought up with, that we take care of ourselves last, mm-hmm. right? That maybe we're not worth what we're asking for, or we're afraid to ask for what we want because we think we're going to get told no, as if that's the worst thing on the planet, right? And if truly that's the worst thing that could happen to you, be told no, then that's pretty great, right? That's not bad at all. But Eric really taught me. Early on, I had a cake business. I did like 3D cakes, and they were great. And I spent like 8 hours on these cakes. Bust my ass. There wasn't anything that wasn't perfect on that cake. And I had quoted like $100. You got a Blue's Clues cake for $100, and the mom would walk in, and she got a great deal, right? And I made $8 an hour, and it was all working out pretty well, right? Well, this Blue's Clues cake took me 12 hours, to the point where Eric finally said, enough with the cake. Like, it's perfect, and you're not making any money at this point. And the mom walked in, and she had tears in her eyes, because this was her son's first birthday, and he loved Blue's Clues. And she said, oh my God, Melissa, like, this is not a $75 cake. I can't pay you that. What do you want me to pay you? And do you know what Melissa said? $100? And Eric kicked me, and he said, oh my God, what you spent on this cake, she's asking you, why don't you say what you want? And after she left, and she said, no, I'm paying you $300. And I was lucky, right? I was lucky. And it was a $500 cake. But the talk that Eric and I had later, which was pivotal for me, was if you don't ask for what you want, you will not get it. And the example that I always give is that Eric transitioned from one jurisdiction to another, one police department to another. And in his transition, he had created this job. He said, they need this position. And he wrote the job description. And he said, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is what you're going to pay me. And this is what my job entails. And this is why you need me. And he did that. And they paid him what he asked for. And I was like, holy shit, look at that. Like, he asked and he got. That's the best thing ever. And that has inspired me and taught me so much. And so maybe it sounds corny that I say my husband is one of my biggest mentors, but that's not a load of crap. That's the truth. That you can have anything that you want in this world. You just have to ask for it. You have to follow it up with action. You can't wait for it to happen. But just ask.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. That's great. Jacque, mentors?
Mentors. Well, Ann is one of my greatest mentors. She has taught me that, and it's super irritating, that you have to go slow to go fast. And it's all about structure and making sure that you have guidelines within your structure. And it takes a lot of time. And like I said, it does. And she will attest that I am a painful person for her to work with because I'm ready to go. Let's go. And she has taught me that, you've got to take your time. You got to put the structure down there. So thank you very much for that. My father definitely has been one of my major mentors. He has taught me everything that he knows. Well, probably not everything, but as much as he can so far. And he still teaches me things every day. So I'm appreciative for that. I don't think it's corny at all. My husband is one of my mentors. He's a firefighter. He is 24 years into the service. Every year, his fire chief asks him, what are your goals? And a couple years ago, and he was dead serious when he said this. He said, well, I'd like to shave off a few, swings on the golf game. And I'm like, that is not what you say to your boss. But he taught me that not everybody wants to be a leader. Some people want to be the firefighter. They don't want to be the fire chief. So don't push people into leadership that want to do the job, that want to be the frontline worker. Some folks are just very, very happy doing that. And it's not... Everybody's not meant to lead. Some people are meant to do. So I think that was one of the best lessons that he ever taught me. And then I'm working with a really great mentor right now who's a personal coach for me. His name is James Moat, and he teaches me, again, just patience and process. So books, the Simon Sinek book, it starts with why. That's a great book that really helped our people understand the passion behind our mission. This book isn't very, very exciting, but it makes an impact, and that's the Checklist Manifesto. And that is written through the eyes of a surgeon wrote the book. If you ever have surgery and you get a little mark on your leg, that's the person who's responsible for making sure that you're not getting operated on the wrong part of your body. So the book is written through the lens of a surgeon, and he touches a little bit upon the restaurant industry and the airline industry and about how important the checklists are to be written by the people who are doing the work, that if you try and designate the checklist from the top down, it's never going to work.
Awesome.
And I guess I forgot to mention books. E-Myth. It's called the E-Myth. Fantastic book. It's really about the story is about a woman who owns a pie shop, and she's the best baker she has. And she's the baker, and she's the marketer, and she's the manager, and she does everything. And then she realizes my pie shop is so big, I can't do it by myself. So she hires a manager, but she manages by abdication.
Awesome.
She just goes, yeah, you got it. And it's really that process that I think all of us go through, and then realizing, and it really mirrors the path I'm going through right now. It's a great read. I can't remember the author right now, but.
Awesome. Okay, so I just have one more question I want to ask the ladies, and it's going to be around the best advice that they could give people, especially women who want to grow and improve their business and leadership style. But are there any burning questions out there that you guys would like to ask one or all of the panelists? Go ahead.
I just want to say you guys are awesome. Like, I've been to this Pizza Expo 6 years and many other conferences, and I attended yours, and that's why my partner and I came here to see this panel. You guys are great too. I want to ask you, like, so there's a lot of wisdom and like great things, like strength that you guys are bringing. But I want to ask more like, I want to steal from your notebook. So, what's the most innovative thing you've done to create positive culture that's worked in your restaurants?
So his question is, what is the most innovative thing you've done to produce positive culture in your restaurants?
You're the youngest. You get to go
Oh my
first.
gosh. Oh man. Well, I will tell you, I actually went to Danny Meyer's group. They had this side group called Hospitality Quotient. I went to that seminar in New York City 2 years ago. And what I brought back from that was like, I needed like a employee relations like person on my team, and we're gonna dig deep, and we're gonna free haircuts, and we're gonna do all this stuff, and we're gonna give them all these things that to better their lives. I still want to do that. I haven't quite figured out how to get that into play. So I'm basically giving you an idea there that I still have not executed. I think it's pretty innovative, but that, and then really just giving them power to speak. We do a lot of employee outings, things like that. We also did a link on our site where they could post to us kind of anonymously to let us know some issues that we were having. And that was really interesting as well. And then again, kind of hiring that business consulting group, which I know is not something that everyone can do, but we said we're going to get rid of some of these other things we're paying for to have money to do this because they need to be heard and we need to know what's going on. And really for them to get in there and dig deep. I mean, some of those interviews were 2 hours long with some of the staff and some of the investors. And so that I've really seen a shift in how everyone is acting because they feel like we heard what they said and we're now able to implement some solutions for some of those things. So that's been really helpful for us so far.
When I think of innovation, I'm just thinking of the most recent example. And it's not innovation in terms of a recipe or in terms of cooking, but recently in Washington State, we are right up against one of the highest minimum wages in the company. So for our company, we went to $12 an hour. Well, the whole state did $12 an hour this year. For a company our size, that 50-cent increase will impact the bottom line by about $130,000. Next year, the minimum wage is going to $13.50. That impact will hit the bottom line for about another $380,000. So, you're looking at, upwards of $500,000 if you don't do something, if you're not strategic. So instead of, in my brain, I had 3 things that I thought would probably work. And one was putting everybody at the same wage and then redistributing a tip pool based on the level of competency that they had. Another situation, I thought I had 3 solutions. Long story short, I got the senior team together, and what we discovered was that there was 44 different items that if we made a 1% difference in, that would not only compensate for the $500,000, but it would increase the overall earnings. It could potentially increase sales and decrease costs in other areas. So have we executed on all of that yet? No. Are we going to? Absolutely, because I'm not about to lose $500,000. So it's innovations like that where you trust your team versus thinking that you have all the answers up here. So it's I guess the innovation is being humble. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but that's what we're doing.
I don't know if this is innovative. It's just what we do. For us, we're Holy Stromboli, right? So everything's bully. That's short for Stromboli. So for us, when our team members exhibit what we feel like is hospitality, teamwork, when they embody the values that make us what we are and who we are, that's bullytude, right? So you got bullytude. And we've got a great little mailbox with little forms that they fill out. And when your team members or your coworkers have done something that you feel is above and beyond and you've shown bullytude, they fill them out. And then we have a State of the Bully meeting quarterly, like the State of the Union, State of the Bully, and we recognize them for that. You know, if you get an online review where they mention your name, we fill out a bullytude for you. We have our own line of greeting cards. So we've got birthday cards. We sing happy birthday to each team member. We have, anniversary cards. You name it. But we take the time to recognize those things that are important to our team. And then the big one for us is, culture, right? So we have a lot of females, a lot of women in our business, and that can get kind of dicey, right? We can sometimes not be so nice to each other. That's just a simple fact. And the guys stand around and go, are you guys kidding me? Like, stop talking about each other, right? Okay, so a big part of that is education and educating each other that if you have a problem with somebody, then you just go tell them. Or if you hear that somebody else has a problem with somebody, don't run and tell that person. You're not helping them. Just mind your business. Or maybe tell them, hey, quit talking about so-and-so. By educating these young people that talking about each other just tears everybody down. And so honestly, that's just been a big thing for us to really empower young women, to teach them to support each other, that when one of us gets promoted, we're behind you. Like, good job, awesome, because next time it might be me. I want it to be me. So that's a big part of what we do to, promote culture, a good culture.
Awesome. Okay. I do want to get to that last question about just like maybe a sentence or two, 30 seconds of your best advice to people, especially women who want to grow and improve their business and leadership.
I'll go first this time.
Thank you.
Be yourself, be passionate. Those are just your basic run-of-the-mill answers. So I feel like I've shared with you a lot of the things that I do, but one of the other ideas that resonated to me when we were talking just a few minutes ago was the appreciation campaign that we're doing within our four walls. And what we're doing is we're targeting different segments of the market. And it started because we had a firefighter appreciation day. And I thought, that'd be really nice to bring some pizzas down to the firehouse, let those men and women know we appreciate them. And it occurred to me, well, why am I just doing it at the station that my husband works at? Why don't I do it at all the stations around my stores? And really, really kind of spun out of control a little bit. It was about 200, I think it was over 1,800 $15 gift cards in the local fire departments. But that really caught on, and we've got a lot of social media from that. So then the next month I thought, all right, let's do grocery stores this month, because how many times have you seen checkers not get a smile or get thanked or treated correctly? And I'm like, let's appreciate the grocery checkers out there. But in my head, I was thinking, 10, 20 per store, 250 per anchor tenant for each of our locations. And then that was another boots on the ground campaign. So I think the more, my advice, not so much as a woman, but as a business leader, the more you can infiltrate your neighborhoods and become a part of your community, let them know that you're in it with them. That's a differentiating factor for your business that will really sustain you over time. And it's made a pretty big difference for us. I wrote a pretty specific, detailed article in Pizza Today that's in this month if you want to know more about that, because I think it's just such a cool win-win program for the business and for the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacque.
Be true to yourself. Be who you are, right? Be yourself.
Yep.
Be confident. You're smart. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try crazy things. Don't be afraid of that. You're smart. Trust your intuition, and know your why. Why are you doing this? Why did you take the chance? Why did you initially go into the business? And then make sure that everything that you do resonates with your why. Everything that you do should be tied back to your why. And if it's not, think twice, right? if you start to stray from that why, you have to really center yourself. For me, I was given the gift of hospitality, right? That's how I show my love for people, is I feed them food in your belly, and that's what makes me happy. That's why we do what we do, to enrich the lives of everyone we meet. So if we're not doing that, then it's not something we need to be doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. Rachel?
I got a tattoo last summer with my sister, who's sitting right here. Hey. We weren't inebriated or anything, but it says "figure it out." It's the only tattoo I'll probably ever have, unless I finally get that Garth Brooks signature tattoo I've really been thinking about. I just love him. But yeah, so I have a tattoo that says that. And recently, kind of in our work with this business consulting group, we outlined our values for the company, and one of those is have a figure it out mentality. And that's so important, and we really use that to train a lot of our staff. Don't focus on the problem. Bring me the solution. Bring me a solution. Bring yourself a solution. Don't wait for somebody else to try to do it for you, but empower your team around you to bring ideas to the table and work through those. Another one that you said that's so important, that's also one of our big missions, and I don't talk about it enough, is community. And I feel like every dollar we give, we get back tenfold. An example of that last year was, I don't know if you guys heard about this teacher walkout that happened in Oklahoma. It lasted for almost 3 weeks. And before it happened, I had this idea that we were going to feed the teachers, right? Because there were teachers coming from all over the state, and they were marching in Oklahoma City because it's the capital. And so we said, okay, every teacher that wants to come dine with us, as long as the walkout lasts, gets a free slice, salad, drink, right? It's only going to last a couple days. No big deal. $43,000 later,
Whoa.
the walkout ended. And everyone said, God, how much money did you lose? I said, the craziest part is we didn't lose any, because so many people came because they said, I love what you're doing for the teachers. I'm here, I'm spending money. I brought all my friends, we're spending money here because of what you're doing for the teachers, and we support you. And that was just like, I couldn't believe it. I thought I was the dumbest person on earth. But to see that, and then people, and then we ended up just putting a permanent discount in place for teachers of public, college, private schools, whatever, retired, as long as you have an ID. And that's been a really positive thing for us. So never underestimate the impact of supporting the community around you. And the last thing, somebody told me this one time, just remember who got you here. When you're having those moments where you're doubting yourself because something has not gone quite to plan, you can do it. Remember that you're the one who did it in the first place, and keep pushing through that. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Okay. These ladies are great. And I had a friend remind me the other day, she goes, make sure you tell them, and women do it all with 2 hours less in the day. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, you get up, we have to get up an hour early to fix our hair and do our makeup and get dressed. And we have all this time at the end of the day to wash our face and get ready for bed. And we do that. And I thought, yesterday I got to do 2 seminars. I got to have meetings with different entrepreneurs that are here. And at 6 o'clock, I was French braiding my mom's hair and, taking care of her. And, my daughter's nursing. She's pumping because she's keeping her nourishment for her baby while she's here having it. And this is what women in pizza do. We do all of these things and we take care of our families. It's awesome. So thank you all for coming.